Would you all stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have one set of minutes from our March 4th commission meeting. Are there any concerns over those minutes?
I have no changes.
I have no changes either. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the minutes from the March 4th commission meeting.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 2 is a thank you from Gradebash, Thayn. Is she here? She is. Thank you. Come on up. Yes, you do.
Is that the way this works?
Yep. I'll just state your name for
I'm
people.
Kara Thayn, and I'm just here from, I'm representing Graduation Spectacular Grad Spec. And first of all, we want to thank you for all your past involvement and your support. The Grad Spec's been going for almost 40 years, and we've really increased our numbers the last couple of years, especially since COVID, and from moving from underneath the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints umbrella to the district. We're now gathering lots of kids from the high school. So we've upped our numbers from 250 around about average to last year we had 550 plus come. So it's an amazing event that keeps the kids safe on graduation night, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun for us as a committee to put it on, because it's just keeping kids safe. That's the biggest goal that we have. So anyway, we just want to thank you, and maybe solicit some more funds for this year. If you're willing, that would be wonderful. We would really appreciate it. Do you have any questions for me?
No, just thank yous. It's a good event. Any questions for Karen?
No, I echo the same. Just years and years ago, back when I was a kid, it was going on then. So
Yeah.
And my son's been to it as well. And I think the sheriff could probably talk to this as well. I don't remember any recent accidents on graduation night. It seems like they've kind of dissipated. So
Big time. Yeah, we've had hardly any incidents in the last couple of years. It's been great, and we contributed a lot to this event.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing event. I'm fairly new to the committee, so it's been really an amazing thing to be a part of. So,
okay.
Well, I can say I never attended one as a youth, so I'm old. I would have, though. Well, thank you. Are we okay on our agenda item to make an approval, Seth?
Yeah, I apologize. When I was reviewing the agenda, I thought that this was something somebody put on that was for something else. I didn't realize it was for grad spec. We would have changed what is said there. So, but I think you're probably good to go ahead if Lynn's
All right.
okay with it.
Well,
Did we make a donation already this year?
That's what I was.
I'm sorry, that was East Carbon Days.
Yeah, that's what I was just talking to Jeannie about. Yeah, that was for.
Okay.
I think it's a great thing, and I would make a motion that we fund at least the same amount as we did last year.
Seth, do you remember what we...
I'm sorry, I didn't realize what
Garrett,
the item was. I
do you
wanted to check,
remember?
so.
our records show $500.
500, that's what I was thinking. So, 500?
500.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Well, thank you.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
I'll wait
Thank
for
you.
you to make your motion.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3 is a review and possible approval of the Carbon County Tax Advisory Board recommendation for emergency medical services funding. Barbie Haeck, the chairman of this advisory board now.
Hello. As you know, the Tax Advisory Board met a couple weeks ago. Larry came and talked to us about the 2024 fire contract. At that time, the board voted to recommend that you consider taking $80,000 from the reserve to cover the fire contract for this year.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have no
I
questions.
think in the past, we have not used the tourism dollars that come in from hotels and restaurants for the emergency services. And it's proper to use for that. There's a lot of work that the fire departments, both from Price, East Carbon, and Wellington, have to deal with in regards to tourists who are in trouble. So this is an attempt to try to help spread that load out a little bit and give a little more to those contracts. So
Sure.
we have a motion to approve that.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Carbon County Tax Advisory Board recommendations for emergency medical service funding.
I'll second that.
And that was for $80,000. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Barbie.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate your help there. Item 4, open sealed bids for a mower attachment for the road department. Did we get anything, Seth?
Yeah, I have one bid here.
While he's opening that, I might make a little bit of a explanation. The road department makes a lot of effort to keep the weeds down along the edges of the road, and the mower is what is used to do that. The mower that we've had in the past is more designed for very large areas, but many of our county roads have a really narrow shoulder between the edge of the asphalt and fences and people's yards, and so a different type of mower is one that's really needed. So that's what this is for.
This is from John Deere out of Roosevelt. It's for 2024 Land Pride. It's for $16,650. Says this quote is for the road department. The mower that is quoted has the upgraded double chain guards.
Okay. Any questions?
I have no questions.
I know.
I'll make a motion that we accept the bid and turn it over to Daniel, who's the road shop supervisor, and Commissioner Jensen to review it and see if it'll fit the need.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 5 is consideration and possible approval of resolution number 2024-01, a resolution of the Carbon County Commission supporting the Price City reauthorization of ZAP tax, opinion question, and intent not to adopt countywide ZAP tax. So, explanation. Nick Tatton with Price City.
Thank you, Commissioners. As you might recall from last time we were here, this is part of the process to renew that as a voted on tax in the community. After this step, this is kind of the last of the hurry up and wait. A lot of planning, some community education will take place, and then it'll find its way onto the ballot in November. Hopefully successfully. There's a lot of good that's been done with this. And so the current tax will expire at the end of March next year, March 31st. This would come on effective April 1st. So a continuation 10-year period.
So
If there's questions on projects or anything, we'd be happy to answer them.
this is a tax that's already in place and would be extended.
Exactly. So
again.
it's an element of sales tax, 10%, and it's been in place now for about 18 years. And this would extend it for 10 more.
So it's 1/10 of 1%
1/10.
on sales tax. And that only is collected in Price City limits.
For us, yes.
Okay.
I think Helper also has a ZAP tax authorized that would only be collected within their limits as well.
Okay.
Perfect.
Questions for Nick?
I don't have any questions.
You have a motion?
I'll go ahead and make a motion then that we approve the resolution number 2024-01, a resolution for the Carbon County Commission supporting Price City's reauthorization of the ZAP tax option or opinion question and intent not to adopt countywide ZAP tax.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I say thank you, gentlemen,
Thank
and
you.
also I think Seth, we've got you on for our next committee meeting that's working on that. And of course, anytime you're welcome to be part of that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Item 6 is ratification of agreement for consultant services with the Airport IFE Services, Inc. Casey?
So, as we've talked about in previous commission meetings, we have a project going to go out at the airport where we're going to build a taxi lane and also a building for the airport maintenance facility. Part of our building of the taxiway, we're using the federal entitlement dollars. We have to have an independent fee estimate done by a contractor, somebody that's outside of our engineering services, to review their billing to make sure it's in line and appropriate. So basically, they're not doing an in-depth look at the engineering. They're just making sure that the fees that that our airport engineers are charging us are in line. So that's what that is. Do you guys have any questions?
If you would, Commissioner, just kind of expand on those entitlement dollars.
So every airport has, based on the number of flights in and out of the airport and whether or not they have commercial service and how many airports or airplanes are based out of that airport, have a certain amount of funding that comes to the airport. So the more traffic we get, the more entitlement dollars we get. We're able to save those, or it's more kind of a loaning program. We loan our entitlement money 1 year to, say, Nephi or Richfield or one of the other airports, and then in future years they loan theirs to us so we can do larger projects. But that's kind of where that money comes from. It's federal dollars, and that's how we help airports throughout the state to be able to handle these bigger projects.
Any other questions?
I guess one more thing, we did go out to, we did gather estimates. Seth was at least aware of those. I included him on those emails. We reached out to 4 different firms, and this was the firm that gave us the best deal to do the independent fee estimate.
Oh, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we ratify the agreement with consultants for consultant services with IFE Service, Inc.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 7, consideration and possible approval of amendment number 2 to special billing agreement DPR-0272 between DGO Division of Technology, DTS, and Carbon County Network Services. Anybody know what that one's about?
No, it's got Barry's name on it.
Not sure what that is.
If I remember right, this is the one where the state was going to come in and consult and make sure that we had everything in place, security-wise, within our networks, to make sure that we don't have malware attacks that could hurt our county systems. If I remember right, that's what this one is about.
I think you're right. Offer some training and other things. So probably a important deal. So that's with the state of Utah, the Division of Technology Services. So
It looks like they've broken it out here as far as what their flat fee is. Some of their device maintenance comes out to be $250 a month. So roughly $3,000 a year.
okay.
So I will I will make a motion that we approve the amendment number 2 to the special billing agreement, the DPR -0272 between the DGO, Division of Technology, and DTS and Carbon County Network Services.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 8, consideration and possible approval of memorandum of understanding between Utah Cyber Center and Carbon County. That one, another one with Barry.
Mm-hmm. I believe this is just the other side of that, where we're allowing them to come in and look at our systems and be able to have access to some of the back end side of to verify that things are in place to protect us, if I remember right.
That looks like in reviewing it. So any concerns or questions about that? Again, probably just stuff that we need to help make sure that our systems are secure.
I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Utah Cyber Center and Carbon County.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 9, consideration and possible approval of appointments to the Carbon County Weed Board. So this board, we were still short on the numbers that would be required, and so Chris Rowley, our weed supervisor, has solicited Kyle Butcher to serve on that, and this weed board requires a variety of people from the county to sit on that board, and this one, this appointment would be to represent the ranchers and farmers.
I think if I remember right, he's served on this board before, hasn't he?
He has. His appointed term ended, and then we've gone several years without enough to even have a board. And so I believe this will bring that board back into compliance.
Perfect. I think he'll do a great job. So
I agree. If there's no more conversation, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the appointment of Kyle Butcher to the Carbon County Weed Board.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 10 is consideration and possible approval of a contract to treat noxious weeds on BLM land. This is a little bit of a continuation. A few weeks ago, we received some information from the BLM. This is an annual service and a contract that we have with them. Our weed department partners with them in many ways, also with the Forest Service and private landowners in doing some spraying on public land, and they pay us a fee of $7,500 a year to help with that, and so it's recommended by Chris Rowley that we approve this agreement. Do you have a motion or any questions?
I have no questions.
I have no questions. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the contract to treat noxious weeds on BLM land.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 11 is adjourn as the Carbon County Board of Commissioners and convene as the Board of Adjustments. Take a motion.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we are now adjourned as the Board of Adjustments. So item 12 is the item, and it is a parcel in the East Carbon area. Commissioner Hopes, do you want to bring this one?
So this parcel used to be an old church for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It was sold probably about in 2019. Well, it was actually sold in 2018 and turned into a primary residence. So part of what we're doing here is acknowledging that it was changed, so the use is changing from church facility, and then also for whatever reason, no fault of anybody really here at the county, the mailing address was going to Duchesne, so the homeowners have not been paying the property taxes, so it's up for tax sale this year. As they began to look at the property, there was some need to make some adjustments because not all of it is being used. Some of it, there's the residence side of it is a smaller section of what was the entire church, and so the rest of it is being considered as I think it's listed here, kind of like a garage, unusable. It's not valued as the primary residence. And so Mr. Bishop has reviewed that and come up with a recommendation of the value of those properties, or of the property based on what's there now, so that the homeowners can get caught up on their taxes. They want to pay, they just have been working out the agreement on what that would look like. So,
Any questions?
So was the designation storage mobile home? Is that what it was changed to?
does that sound correct? If you'd like, I guess that's up to you.
Yeah, come on up, Gillen.
Can you clarify the question? Like we changed it to a SFR, single family residence. That's the new one. And so part of the home has been separated from physically, and with the heating, and it's basically the classroom section. And we have, there's a lot of problems with having a setup like that. As I was talking to Commissioner Hopes about it, they've got restrooms that just have toilets in them and sinks, and they had to take out a toilet to be able to make a shower, things like that. The other areas of the building, which are extremely high, the cultural hall area and the congregational room, it's just very difficult to heat that kind of a thing. And so they found out quickly they had to move into the classroom portion, and the rest of the building's been walled off, and they basically only access it through a side man door. It's not accessible through the main living area. So we've divided those two into basically an attached garage and a living area. It's kind of, in this particular situation, it's putting a square peg into a round hole, but it does reflect what the home is currently being used for, and the negative aspects that they would have of trying to sell a single family home that is just designed the way it is as a church. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the change that was recommended by the assessor's office on parcel 1B-0502-0069.
And I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 13 is adjourn as the Board of Adjustments and convene as the Carbon County Commission.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're back. The County Commission meeting. Item 14 is Assessor Department update. So I think what we'll do, Gillen has requested to be on the agenda tonight, as well as we have some things that we're going to do. And so I think, Gillen, why don't you come forward if you're wanting to still, and give an update on your office. We did receive a letter from the state last year, and put some things in writing that were required of the county in order to continue to receive the funding from the state for the assessor's office, which we need.
Yeah.
So Gillen, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to give an update. This update, what I really want to focus on is over the last several months, I've met with Commissioner Hopes and Jensen on a regular basis to be able to give them updates of what we're looking at achieving this year. We have started by looking at training with our individual employees. Every single employee has received multiple classes that are outside of the state, outside of the county, delivered by the state to be able to get them closer to licensure. If you remember in the comments made by Gerald, one of the people that came down and did the audit, he said that after interviewing our people, he could tell that they knew what they were talking about, but they did not have the licensure. And so that is one thing that we really focused on. And we did get them out to get those classes. We have 2 that have applications put into the state. There are some logistical things that we're trying to work through of getting trainees. But ultimately, that training gap is being closed, and I'm very pleased to see that. Another thing is we started our detailed review. The part of the state's concern was in the O2 area that we did last year, and they said that they were looking to do a audit of that area. They opted not to do a detailed audit, and they asked us to redo the O2 area in this year's detailed review. We broke down that area in the manner that we've done in past years. We collected the information as far as photographs and other documentation about the properties, and we started the detailed review in January. Our target was to finish that detailed review by the end of February, and we did hit that target. And we went through, and I believe on a weekly basis, you guys got an email from Kevin to go over our updates on that. Now that the detailed review portion is done, so we know we have a confident idea of what we believe is there. Now we're moving on to reports. We have about 25 reports that I have shared with the commission. You can guys go onto the sheets and you can look at those reports, and they'll go over everything from a primary residential piece of land that's over 1 acre that's getting that primary residence to possibly a primary residential piece of land with no improvements on it. Several different things that we're looking at, trying to identify have we captured all of the correct characteristics that we need to. So we've got about 25 reports that we've been working on and that you can see and that we can make available to anyone that would like to review them. But that goes over the getting the data ready to move into the true valuation side of things. Valuation side of things will start very soon, and really that is where we compare the sales data that's happened and then actually applying percentage increases. Now, to get to that point, we've done several things. And one of the things that I really am passionate about is that the progress that has been made by my staff and the ability to go in and to really do a very high stress job in many regards. So if you look at the office as a whole, one of the things that was identified was getting a clearer understanding about the process and procedures to be able to detail that out. So what we did, every employee has one of these on their desk now. This is just a simple flip folder, but on the inside it has an outline of the steps that detailed review like you do, like to perform a detailed review. And as they're going through that, they would read and follow each step for the land and for the residential to be able to put it into the right classification or whatever they may be looking at. They also have to make some decisions about quality and condition. So we made what we call job aids, which is just a single sheet of paper with pictures that says, hey, this is what a fair quality home looks like, and this is what an average quality home looks like. In addition, they have to make a determination about an effective age. So by going and doing the drive-through and getting the detailed Google pictures that we did, people can look at our employees look at the picture that's current compared to the one that's in, like, say 2012, and they can see if something's been updated on that, like the outside or the roof or whatever. And then they use the effective age chart to change the effective age. The effective age, it's very technical, but at the end of the day, it just determines how much depreciation is on the home. This was created this year so that we could consistently go through and they could have a process to follow, and that's something that was written. The next thing that was done is that we have had both state and other professionals helping in the office that we can go in and talk with them to be able to identify areas of concern that we need to address. Like, for example, one area, if you look at the system, when I stepped into the role, 3 years ago, there was pretty much a computer and a desk and a chair, and that's what I sat down to. And so in doing that, there were several things that was missing as kind of like the fundamental backbone. But Puma, as far as a computer, it was there and it had been set up, and we continued on with the process as it had been set up. The way that properties were described, the way that codes had been used in the system is the same way that had been used for probably 2 decades, I would guess. Going through this year, we identified that some of them were inefficient, and they were not the way that some of the larger and more efficient counties operated. And so working with some people here and working with one of our people that you hired, we actually got that changed. And that was one of the things that I pushed for, is actually to get those administrative codes changed. And those are changed in the system now. Additionally, there's other things that we managed to go through and update and change. Just last week, I sat down and personally outlined every neighborhood that will be what we call a land economic area. That's basically if something's going to change percentage-wise, it's going to change in that area. Like, for example, if you look at Hilltop, it's very different than Westwood proper. And you need to make sure that line is very well defined, because Hilltop, the lots will go for $120,000, when down in Westwood, they'll go for 45. And so last week, I personally went through and outlined every single area, we call them neighborhoods, that we're going to use in the county, and gave them over to the person that you guys hired, Kevin, and got that put into the system. So that was something that we worked on and achieved. Yeah, so right now we have additional areas that probably are the areas that we're most keeping my personal eye on, and that is commercial was contracted out. Currently, the land guide for commercial has not yet been delivered to the county, and while not a red flag, we only have about 10 weeks left, and I want to make sure that that is getting delivered and all those numbers are coming in right. And so that is something that we have emailed the company that was looking at that, and we're waiting to get an update from them. So, I mean, right now, just on Monday, I met with a senior analyst at the Utah State Tax Commission. His name's Nick, and we gave him a full download of our data where we're at today. And he reviewed it and went over areas, and he gave us a few reports that we could look at. And what his reports focused on was areas of change and areas of, over the last several years, had looked one way and now they look another. It was a good eye opener, because we could really break down on a granular level of which of the employees were changing things and how they were changing them. Like we were bouncing ideas back and forth, and we could actually show that one employee was actually on average raising quality by about, it goes from average, average plus, good plus, but they do quantify that by 3, 4, 5, 6. And so we could actually quantify how much they were raising it by. And that gave us, not opportunities to criticize, but opportunities to show them areas where maybe they don't realize that there may be some bias in looking at a particular type of home and saying, hey, I just think that's an average home, when really it's not an average home. It could be a fair home, or that could be a good home. And you've got to make those determinations right. And so, that working with the state for the last little bit has been very it's been very good, and they've been giving us green lights pretty much all the way. And so one of the biggest things that I definitely focused on is that there was definitely some things that Carbon County's assessor's office needed to do better, and we have moved in very strong strides to be able to make those improvements. And I'm proud of the employees that I have, and I'm proud of the improvements and the efforts that they've been putting in. I mean, one thing I would say is that a lot of focus is always into this detailed review. It's into the homes and getting those numbers right. And that's probably the biggest piece of our job that we do. But right now, I mean, we have had to walk and chew gum because we've had an unprecedented number of Board of Equalizations. And now we have 13 or 16 going on to the state level. We've prepared strongly for those, and we feel confident with those. We've already had, and I've sat in representation for the current year before's Board of Equalizations, which are now at the state level, and those have been going on over the last few weeks. Our personal property, business personal property that brought in a record $3 million last year is on pace to get, because of depreciation, it may not go quite to 3 million, but it is on pace to bring in a tremendous amount of money with that particular area, and that requires a lot of attention and making sure that the details are done there. Both Greenbelt and the residential exemption programs, which are other big areas, are ones that we focus on as well. And we actually just finished doing the building permit review, all the field visits. So those have been or will be finished up this week, going and getting keyed into the system. So in overview, there is a lot been going on. In overview, I'm very proud of the work that has been done, and I look forward to continuing to move forward in a positive manner. That's all my positive stuff. I'm very, very positive. Having said all that, I did today have an opportunity for Kevin to give me what he's about to read, what I presume he's about to read. And it's quite negative. And I'm, the one thing that I would highlight from the items that are on the front of page of what he's sharing is that these are items that either A, were identified by the state and we've been working on, or B, that we brought to him as a concern. And we're saying, hey, we're trying to work through this. And it is difficult and hard to feel the genuine want and desire to move forward when a person has said, hey, we've hired this person, he's going to come in as a help and as a resource for you guys. And then everyone relaxes, everyone opens up, and everyone shares and says, hey, this is what we're working on. This is what we're having challenges with. And then to get, this from him of what he's reported of saying. And so that's, since I won't have an opportunity to talk afterwards, I'm just kind of sharing that right now. In the same vein of that, in closing, I'm just going to share this one thing, which from doing our reports over the last several weeks, that was identified and corrected, and 3 different homes. One was a regular house, and it had a sketch that was deleted from it. That's a mistake. The second was a 4-plex, and the basement was completely obliterated. It was removed from the square footage, and so that lowered the value quite drastically. And the third was a basement, which had a garage and then a full basement attached to it. Now the basement took up a portion of the garage, and so the basement should have been smaller in size. Those are 3 mistakes that were identified in the last 7 days and were corrected through these reports that we're doing. The first is, was done by me, the sketch. The second, where the basement GLA was completely removed, that was done by Kevin. And then the third, basement that had a garage, that was done by one of the people that we pay $15 an hour. And so when it comes to data, getting through data and getting the best possible piece of data, anyone can make a mistake. Anyone can make a mistake, and anyone can have challenges. And whether you're getting paid $100 an hour or $15 an hour, you can still have a mistake. And so I'm proud of the way in which my staff has shown their resilience and kept moving forward. and we'll continue to move forward. And I continue to do the best job and with integrity that I can for Carbon County citizens. Do you have any questions for me? Nope. All right.
No questions. Thank you. I think at this point, we're trying to report to the public what has happened over the last 3 years, and note that Gillen's leaving now. 3 years ago, when Gillen took office, it was rumored that he was going to come here and work very little, and that he was going to focus on his private appraisal business. And so he was talked to then, made no effort to convince us that he was not going to do exactly what we had heard. And we witnessed for 2.5 years that's exactly what he did. He came in not very often. The public was irate about it. Appointments made, they have been, he's missed them. People coming in wanting to talk to him. His staff was unwilling to represent him fully. So answers to the public were not there. And at the time, he had a staff that knew what they were doing. They had been there years and years, and they were good at what they did. So they moved ahead, continued working, began to come to us with problems that they were concerned about, because the work they do is logged into the system. It tells who made an entry and what the entry was, including the time of day by the minute. So there was things that Gillen asked them to do that they were unwilling to do. And over the course of 1.5 years, those folks all left. People continued to be hired to fill those empty seats. And still, Gillen was not in the office enough to train and to help make sure these mistakes that could be made were not being made. And so that went on for 2.5 years. Our tax rolls were never turned in on time. The state has a date that those are to be turned in, and he missed it each time. And last year in 2023, on May 22nd, when that roll was due, he was not in the office for most of that week, and he did not turn it in on time. He requested an extension was given. And in the course of that, there began to be questions raised from our auditor and from our treasurer, and what they were able to see in the system concerned them, and they began to note mistakes they could see on parcels. And a list began to be generated, and 1 week turns into 2, and finally the state is called in. They had assured us 1.5 years earlier that they would come and make sure that he was doing his job properly. They were in the office, but they didn't catch up on any of the problems. But we put our foot down. They came here and did a deeper audit and began to find all kinds of problems in inequity in the assessor role. And what that means is that for all of us here in the community who own property, some of our properties were valued too high, some of our properties were valued too low. So in essence, the tax roll was not equitable amongst those who own property in the county. A decision was made to make some adjustments, which the state of Utah did. Then the tax rolls were closed, and then we ended up with about 1,100 adjustments that had to be made to that tax roll. Now, In the process of that, there's a period where Gillen has the ability to make some recommended adjustments of mistakes that were made in his office. And he was supposed to get those adjustments to us as the commissioners, the Board of Equalization, weekly, because we knew there were a lot coming in. And a description of why he was making adjustments. We never got those until October. So 3 months passed, and we ended up right in October having to make a decision in this meeting to accept the changes that he had recommended. There were 913 changes, a valuation of lowering the value of the taxes in the county by about $90 million. We had no choice but to approve those in one meeting with no explanation of why he made 913 recommended changes. We didn't want to cause extra burden on those people who had come in and visited with him and went through that process. After that meeting, we began to receive additional requests from property owners for adjustments to be made to their properties. And so I personally spent hundreds of hours looking at those individual requests and trying to determine why there was an error, what it was. I asked for help from the assessor. I took him a stack of these down, and he refused to do anything with them. A week later, I went and picked them up and went through them myself, and spent hundreds of hours looking at those one at a time. And that process, it opened my eyes to the real problem that we had. So if an individual property owner was unhappy with their value, I would look at that parcel, and then I would look at all of the parcels around it to try to make sense of why it was valued the way that it was. And what I found was I could not find one parcel, and I would estimate I looked at about between 500 and 600 parcels that had the same value per acre. They were all over the place. The difference from $960 an acre to $7,200 an acre for bordering properties of the same use. So there were major errors, and that prompted then for us to say we have to make sure that in 2024 the tax rolls are more accurate and even across all of the property owners. A couple of specific examples. The landfill in East Carbon, ECDC, has 5 parcels of property associated with their facility. 4 320-acre parcels and 1 80-acre parcel. We received a letter from the landfill, the Republic Services that owns the landfill, wondering why 2 of their parcels that were exactly the same size had different values. And so looking again all around through that property, I discovered that properties all over there had different values. And the one that was really concerning was that one of the 320-acre parcels had no value, 0. So that was left off the tax rolls in 2023. Other instances would be specific to Southeast Price, where there's some farming and then just no man's land, and many, many parcels through that area where exact same acreage, different owner right next to it with the same amount of acreage, and values anywhere from $960 an acre to $7,200 an acre. So those types of specific examples made it very clear that we could not trust that the 2024 tax roll would be accurate. So we hired Kevin Ewell, who is a very experienced mass appraiser from that has worked in the Utah County Assessor's Office for many years, served as the deputy chief in that office for many years, and could see a need outside of government for a private company to be able to help counties that are struggling. We talked with the state of Utah. They recommended Kevin highly. The state of Utah's view as they came in last year and looked at this, they said this is unprecedented. The problems are, they've never seen anything like this, and they didn't know what to do. So we hired Kevin. He's been in the office now for 5 or 6 months, and has literally, Gillen takes the credit. You heard him here for a lot of the things that he's taking credit for, and it's not what it's not what Gillen did. It's what Kevin did in straightening things out. And we don't believe that Gillen would have put the time in to get this straightened around. So it's cost the taxpayers extra money to try to straighten it out, and we're comfortable that the 2024 tax roll is going to be accurate. And so, do you have anything to add?
No, that was well spoken, Commissioner. And one thing I would like to say, if I could, it kind of ties in with this. We are in election season. There's a lot of talk about us increasing taxes every year. We did that one time in 2020 or 2019. And to increase taxes by state statute, you have to have hearings. We have not had a hearing since 2029 on increasing taxes. The problem that people are seeing is a valuation problem on their property. That's what's affecting a lot of people. There's some that really appreciate the lower values that were put on their houses, but they don't realize that lower tax that they are paying is being shifted to others who are not asking for adjustments. So the old widow woman down the street is paying a little more tax so others don't have to. I don't think that's right. I think Kevin's come in here and he's straightened a lot of things up. And it's interesting that somebody could be in their 4th year of their term and all of a sudden it's just making steps now. Kind of coincidental in my mind, but the state did write a letter to us on all of the problems that they'd found. We had no choice but to fix it. When it's not fair and equitable, that is the most important thing an assessor can do, make it fair and equitable to everybody. And as Commissioner Jensen said, when it's something unprecedented and the state has never seen it, with all of the years of experience that the State Tax Commission has, they've never seen anything this bad before. And somebody wants to spin it and say there's no problems, everything's good, and everything I say is perfect, and everything that this other person is going to say is all negative. I look at that different. I look at more honest and trustworthy, and what's the true statement and what's the false statement. There's an old saying about you can kid the players, you can kid the fans, but you can't kid the players. Those that are in the game and work with people every day know what's going on. The citizens who don't and maybe see this small benefit agreed on their side, they don't see what's happening. We have no choice, but we are addressing it. It's great to have Kevin, who has been super helpful to educate that office, to train that office, and to help us solve this problem that was created not by any of us.
Just a couple quick things, just to clarify, and he made that statement again tonight that he found $3 million. That was not $3 million that he found. That was $3 million of investment into our community that we knew as a commission, because of the CRAs that we worked on, were coming to our community. That's the solar plant and Intermountain Electronics. There may have been some that he did find, and we're appreciative of that, but the majority of that money we knew was coming in as tax-based for our community. And then just the other thing,
I was just going to say, and one thing too is that those dollars that came in were not added to future or to growth. That $3 million went back into the pool to lower everybody's tax.
yeah. There are still a few issues. I know that the one item that we discussed tonight, they had reached out to the assessor's office multiple times trying to get an answer to the value of their property. They finally reached out to the commission, it just happened to be me that day, and said, hey, we're not getting any answers out of that office. What do we need to do? And it wasn't until I got involved and started working with that office that they saw that there was a need to get that done quicker, because they needed to get it done before the tax sale so they didn't lose the property altogether. And they finally got busy and got that done. But that's not the only instance where we've had taxpayers come in and say, I'm waiting for this, or I'm needing this from that office. And they try and months later they reach out to the commission. And then that's when they start to take action with the public, is after somebody reaches out to the commission, because it's just not happening through that office.
Kevin, why don't you come up and give us a report?
Thank you. Just a couple comments first, and then I'll read the statement that I prepared. Gillen said that as I came in, he was very open and just open, loving arms. I couldn't have found anything more different. It's been a challenge to get information out of Gillen, to get information about what his processes are, what he's doing. Because when I come into an office, my job is not to tell them what they're doing wrong or what they're doing right, but first and foremost is to find out, what are you doing? And that was very difficult. So for him to say that he's came with open arms, okay.
Can I add one more thing to that?
Sure.
So our commercial appraisers reached out to me after they started doing the commercial appraisals, because they needed information out of that office. They said they had reached out to Gillen multiple times to try and access the system and could not get it. And it wasn't until I just went straight to IT and said they need access to the system. And that's when they got it and were able to start the work. So if there's any delays, and I'm not saying it was months, but it was weeks that they waited for Gillen to give them access to that system.
I've also provided a lot of information to that company, trying to help facilitate what parcels are theirs versus, in the assessor world, there's two types of property. There's residential and there's commercial. Okay, I know there's a lot more different than that, but you have a residential team and you have a commercial team. And so that's the big dividing line.
Could I interject right here? It's important. Gillen stood right there at that pulpit a few minutes ago and told us that it was the commercial appraisers that were causing the problem. And here you're hearing where the problem was. This is a pattern. Every time we turn around, this is exactly what we get out of him. And he's very convincing standing in public talking about it.
I have touched nearly every parcel in Carbon County in the 6 months I've been here. I'm going to read what I've written. The commissioners have asked me to write kind of a report on what I found and what we've been doing to correct that. Sorry, I'm a little hoarse. I've been talking a lot more lately than what I usually do, so I apologize. I've been asked to write a report of my findings for the assessor's office. I was asked to come help the Carbon County assessor correct the state tax commission's noted errors. In looking at PUMA, the CAMA, or computer assisted mass appraisal system for the county, I found it disorganized and not planned out. I asked for the standards of practice for the office and was told that they were not written out. This is extremely important in an assessor's office as it helps to ensure that all employees are treating similar properties the same way. He's now written the flip charts, which is great, but that's still not the guidebook. Okay, that's just a brief summary of what to do. There's a lot of rules and things that go behind that still are not written. So we have the guide or the little sheets, but still the full thing is not written out. I actually found out 3 months into it, they do have one. It's in the cupboard. And all he would have had to say is, this is what we used to have, and we could have worked with that. But it's not used. And I'll just give you some examples. Salvage residents. They're noted and valued. This was found to be inconsistently accomplished across the county. Detailed characteristics review. 2 of the employees are doing more detailed review, and 2 others are just checking boxes and are not trained in entering the properties into PUMA. So anything that needs to be changed is escalated. In both instances, access to additional necessary data, including the MLS, access to verify information, was not available to the staff. There was not a process for reviewing written out, as well as a process for determining many different aspects as valuation are gathered are inconsistent. Back to the salvage residences. How are they valued? Are they valued as a percentage of the cost? That is inconsistent across the county. Some of them are hard-coded to be $5,000. Some are 10, some are 20. It's inconsistent. What's a salvage residence mean? What is it storage? There's no guideline written for that. PUMA is not set up correctly. The following issues were found. Property types were set up as administrative tax code. This is a problem because there are 2 systems within the county. The admin system, which is called COINS, and the CAMA system, which is called PUMA. COINS is there to help implement the taxation of the properties. PUMA is there to facilitate the collection of property characteristics and the valuation of the property in the county. When the lines are blurred and you start valuing property according to how it's taxed, this leads to inequity of assessments and inequity of taxation. This was found apparent throughout the valuations of the properties in the county. As part of this problem, the assessor was given access to the COIN system, including editable access to this program. The challenge is that the assessment rule is passed in PUMA, and once it's passed, it becomes the responsibility of the clerk auditor and treasurer to continue the functions of taxation. Setting up a system of checks and balances. When the assessor is looking at and valuing the property according to how it is taxed, blurred the lines between an unbiased market valuation of property and its taxation. This is very apparent in Greenbelt properties. Greenbelt properties, if they're on Greenbelt, they should still have a market value. But I found that multiple areas of Greenbelt properties were not being valued as market value. They're being valued as ag value, which is what the Greenbelt is. The valuation of commercial properties needs to be completed by an individual that is trained in the commercial group. No one in the assessor's office has been trained or certified to accomplish this task. One of the challenges with this in PUMA is that the commercial properties were not separated from the non-commercial or residential properties. Once the company was hired to complete the review and valuation of commercial properties, it was a challenging task to determine which properties should be given to that company. As of a week ago, we were still shifting properties back and forth between the 2 areas because they're still not well defined. One of the issues between PUMA and COINS was the number of admin codes. In the 2 systems, the admin codes represent how the properties are taxed and provide a way for transfers between the 2 systems. There were 37 different codes. Properties in Utah are taxed as residential, agriculture, and commercial. There's a primary exemption that is also given for properties that have people that live there full time and includes up to the first acre of land on these properties. Residential exemption was not properly identified, and rules were not followed, allowing parcels with greater than an acre, vacant parcels, to receive the residential exemption. In addition, parcels that qualified for the residential exemption had discrepancies between the land and improvements where either the land or the improvement was given the exemption, but not both. I found over 700 of these errors, and I've personally gone through and corrected all of those. So I have some notes on the state tax code. I'm not going to read it because I don't want to put everybody to sleep. But if you are interested, it's the state tax code is 59-2-303, and it's the general duties of the county assessor. You can look them up. And then 59-2-303.1 is the mandatory cycle of appraisals. So rather than read those, I'm just going to break it down into English for you. So the assessor must ensure that the property characteristics of each property in the county are reviewed once every 5 years. This is what they call the detailed review. Every year, every property needs to be valued. In looking at the procedures of the assessor, the properties are on point to be reviewed in the 5-year time period. However, a process to ensure equitable review was not in place. Each year, the assessor valued the area that was detailed review, and the other areas were factored, with a median sales price increase or decrease. In competing the assessment of properties this way, homes become out of line with the market values of the area, and it leads to overtaxation of the properties in the detailed review area and undertaxation of the valuation of other properties in the county. This is constantly shifting the different tax burdens throughout the entire county. And Puma properties should be divided into different buckets. Excuse me. This is to show who and how the properties should be valued. The admins from coins are most similar to the specific property types in Puma. In counties with a robust CAMA system, the tax admin system is used to collect and hold data. Without a robust CAMA system, that they're used to hold and collect the data. When you don't have a CAMA system, you have to store it somewhere. And then they use a lot of spreadsheets. I believe that this county was on PAMS before they went into Puma. PAMS I would not quantify as a robust CAMA system. It's an okay CAMA system. But it doesn't have some of the characteristics that you need, which is why they're moving away from it. In Carbon County, the information for the tax roll was not effectively moved between the two systems, and properties were valued as they were taxed and not necessarily according to the state mandated fair market value. The properties that were not in the detailed review area were simply factored to meet the median sales price for their detailed review area. This has been a challenge to change the mindset that all properties should be valued every year. When you're looking at valuation in a CAMA system, you need to set up a couple things. You need to make sure that all the similar properties are in the same bucket. So all single-family homes should be in the same bucket. All townhomes should be in the same bucket. All condos should be in the same bucket. Manufactured homes, twin homes. Let's see what else we got here. Then your commercial, your industrial, your retail, all of those need to be in their own buckets so they can be valued similarly to one another. Then you also need to put them in their own neighborhoods. So Gillen mentioned neighborhoods. When I got here, there were 5 neighborhoods in the county. And nothing was valued via a neighborhood. So I started the process about a month and a half ago, dividing your county and your cities into neighborhoods. And I started looking at the sales for the last 3 years. And I looked at the sales, I looked at by each individual subdivision. I looked by price per square foot, price per total square foot, price per GLA, age, size of building, median size of building. And I broke this all down, and I took it to Gillen about 3 weeks ago and said, okay, Gillen, here's my best shot at it. Please take a look at it and give me your input. So last week, and he decided it was now time to look at it. And he went through and he looked at the map, and he divided them using a lasso tool in the map to build his own neighborhoods. Then I had to take his lassoed neighborhoods and put them back into what the market says and look at what the market reaction was to those neighborhoods to determine if they were legitimate or not. He didn't look at market data, he just looked at areas. So I'm happy to report that the neighborhoods are complete. Are they perfect? I don't think so. That's going to take time. But I was going to count them up. Let's just say there's more than 5. I didn't count them. So there's well over 20 neighborhoods, 20, 25 neighborhoods for your county. Price has 7 neighborhoods within itself. So that's organized, that's able to do, now we're organized, we're able to do that. So let me give you an idea of what's been accomplished here this year.
Can I ask you a question
Sure.
regarding the neighborhoods? So you went through using a professional approach to creating neighborhoods in the county. He did not accept them, he drew his own. So now we have a potential problem, and you're locked in on having to go back in now and use his circles and redo it all.
What I did
On the
is
value.
I looked at his circles and I took my evaluation of those areas, and I was able to correct some of his circles, as well as correct some errors that were in the different neighborhoods. It actually, I'll give this, it actually improved the process because it gave 2 different ways of looking at it to be able to come at a better conclusion. So I'm not going to fault him for doing that.
Okay, thank you.
But I think it was, he kind of ignored what I did, and that's fine. But he took a different approach. Neither approach was completely perfect, but I think we ended up with a better solution because of the 2 approaches. So I will say that.
And I might highlight, it sounds like he took way too long to look at them to begin the process, which pushes your job and his job further down the road to the deadlines that are in place.
Yeah, had he looked at it 3 weeks ago, we'd have been 3 weeks ahead.
There you go.
But no crying over spilled milk. Where we're at, we're going to get there. So here's what's been accomplished this year. All of the residential properties have been divided from the commercial properties as best as we can see. Again, as I go through and I look at parcels, I still find things that should be different places, but we'll get there. The land guide was developed for the entire county so that the county and all land may be valued with a similar attribute table for each area. This guide includes separate land districts that have similar land characteristics and values. The 5 residential non-commercial land districts were rearranged into 13 residential districts. Commercial and exempt land districts were also created. The attribute tables are adjusted for each district to help address different issues, including steep slope, properties underwater, paper lots, and these are parcels where they've been parceled out, but there's really not a parcel there yet. There's no utilities, there's nothing there. Last year, he just threw a value on them. This year, there's a systematic approach to valuing paper lots in the CAMA system. Basically, what we did, paper lots don't sell. So you have to say, okay, what's the cost of adding the utilities and things to these lots? And what does that add? So we took a percentage off of the lots that are considered paper lots, and they have all been noted as paper lots. So that's something that they can look at next year and say, is it still a paper lot or has it been moved? It's now in its bucket, okay? And we basically said those are 60% of a regular lot. So you can go there and then now we can say all these paper lots are 60% rather than, oh, they're $5,000. They're now appropriately valued with everything else in the neighborhood. Also, we added attribute tables For example, properties around Schofield Lake where we have some parcels that are partially in the lake and some partially out of the lake. They weren't attributing that. They weren't accounting for that. So now you can attribute a factor for the percentage of the lot that's in the lake, and you can apply it specifically to that land line. It's called undevelopable land. And then you can apply the factor to that, which will help reduce it and bring it into a line. We actually had 2 sales out there of properties with that were half underwater. So I'm like, hey, that's fantastic. And now I can prove what those adjustments were actually for. Properties were divided into subtypes. So for example, all single-family homes were divided into either they're a single-family home, mobile and manufactured homes, condominiums, townhomes, attached single-family homes, cabins with utilities and cabins without utilities, and salvage residences. So these are now in their own separate bucket. So when you want to see how salvage residences are valued, you can go and look up salvage residences, and they're all there. It's just a simple code. Multifamily homes. I didn't mention this. When I started looking at the multifamily homes, there was a conversion there with the multifamily homes. They all converted as fourplexes. Okay, now I know you have some duplexes in the county. So, and not all your duplexes are actually duplexes. Some of them are actually single families with basement apartments. So there needs to be some further refining of that so that that gets cleaned up. It'll get there. I know that they're looking at the plexes right now to try and figure out what's a duplex, what's a triplex, and what's a fourplex, so that we can accurately identify those, get the right number of kitchens in there so that they can cost right, the right number of bathrooms so that they can cost right, so that we have a chance of even coming up with what they might sell for. Commercial properties. We put commercial properties into their own bucket. We also divided mixed-use properties. So mixed-use properties are properties that are both residential and commercial. They are valued by the commercial group. However, the components need to be so that they're identified. Then we did vacant land, personal property, and then we also put all of the exempt properties into their own buckets. Admin codes were cleaned up. I worked with the treasurer's office and the auditor's office to come up with a list that we could live with that would be helpful and beneficial. We're still working on making sure that that's all, you know, we're not going to have a nightmare with that. So we're still working on that. I've got all of residential cleaned up in Puma, and I have to make sure that it translates correctly to coins. I've been waiting for commercial a little bit to, so I didn't have to recreate the will several times as I do that. But we're going to start in the next week or so functioning to move those into the correct buckets. I contacted that company 2 weeks ago and said, I need to know what buckets you need so that I can start putting these properties where they can properly go so that we can get these admin codes cleaned up. And he missed his deadline, but we'll follow up. The rules for residential exemption were explained to the staff and corrections were made with the following rules put in place. If a home is located within one of the following cities, Helper, Wellington, Price, or Carbonville, the residential exemption for the properties that qualify, for example, single-family home with an acre or less, would be the default. So what that means is if it's a single-family home less than an acre and it's in one of those cities, by default, it should be getting the residential exemption, because most of the time, somebody's living there full-time. You're not in an area where you have a lot of vacation homes within those cities or second homes. So this would save, I saw a lot of this in BOE last year that you guys kept facing. This will help clean that up. In areas like Schofield, where you do have a large secondary home, that's not the rule. Okay, the rule is they have to apply for it. This will meet the state mandate so that you're making sure that you're in line with that. Neighborhoods for improvements. Again, I talked about this, but we've used methods to be able to put them into their neighborhoods. And I actually just finished that up this morning and cleaned up all the neighborhoods, and everything is now there. I also cleaned up 600 costing errors that were a result of the reappraisal that was done this year. Let's see. What questions do you have?
Is it fair to say that a lot of these errors could have been found had queries and there's an ability to do seeking information through the system that would have caught a lot of these?
Yes. I think the errors stem from lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, and lack of training. I'm just going to say this. I'm not saying this, these are all Gillen's fault. Okay. I will just put that out there. I think he inherited a system that wasn't put together right. And it's a challenge when you come from a fee appraisal world into a mass appraisal world to be able to understand what is happening. Okay. You follow all of the same principles, all of the same functions, but you do them at a different level. You do them in a different way. In smaller counties, you do, basically you're going to do a market adjusted cost. Okay. To do that, you need to be able to make sure that you're costing all the properties correctly. Okay. So you need to properly identify them. That's one of the things that is mandatory for the assessor, is to know each individual parcel within the county. Okay, to understand what those parcels are. We had parcels divided into residential exempt properties, non-residential exempt properties. There wasn't residential, there wasn't, you could go look up an admin code and try and find out what that was, but that's not how the CAMA system is set up to value it. So looking at that and saying, okay, I need to set this up, and there's training put on by the operators of PUMA. And they'll teach you, okay, here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to look at. The State Tax Commission, I put some of this at their feet. They need to do a better job at training their new assessors. And I've told them as such. So, we need to help teach the new assessors when they come in, okay, here's what you got, and let's hit the ground running, and we're going to help you. But yeah, you need to know how to query off of a database. PUMA is not that challenging. It has a query editor for you. So you don't need to know SQL. You don't have to know SQL. If you want to get into advanced queries, SQL's nice, but not necessary. It'll write all the queries for you.
The only reason I bring that up is in working with you, I know there were a lot of errors found. For example, commercial properties that have primary residential attached to it, or primary residential land over 1 acre that was received. So you're only allowed 1 acre, just for the public's knowledge, you're only allowed 1 acre for primary residential. Anything above that 1 acre would then be valued in a different way. If the queries were run, and I don't believe they have been in the last 3 years, he could have caught, or that office could have caught several of these mistakes and been able to fix them, but that wasn't what was happening.
Yeah, if the queries were run, they weren't shared with me. I had to build my own.
Yeah. Okay.
And I didn't, just one more comment. I didn't intend this to be negative. I hope It's not taken negative. I'm just kind of a matter of fact kind of guy. This is the way I see it. I don't try and put a negative or a positive spin on anything. I try not to spin anything at all. I just try and tell you what I see. So,
And that's what we want for the public. We want them just to see what happened and what are the solutions and why things didn't happen the way they maybe should have.
yeah, I believe we will pass the assessment roll on time and with minimal errors. We are well on our way. The staff is working hard. Since we finished the detailed review, the 2 employees that didn't know how to enter property have been taught how to enter property. So they can actually open up a sketch now and function in actually doing hopefully a better detailed review next year than what was accomplished this year or last year. And we were able to also get them all MLS access. This is at no cost to the county. The MLS has agreements with the counties. We give them data, they give us access. So they get data for all of the parcels in Carbon County so that they can put it on their website. And in return, we get access to their database so that we can see the cells, so we can see the property characteristics of properties that have sold. This is so important because the assessor never gets back into a property unless somebody invites them. And most people don't want the tax guy in their house, so they usually don't invite you unless there's something really wrong. But we can pick up when basements are finished. We can pick up when there's remodeling, when there's updating. This is all done through the MLS. We'd like to say everybody pulls a building permit, and everybody does it with a building permit. Yeah, it doesn't happen like that in the state of Utah. In other states, they're a little more vigilant about that. I did some appraisal work in California, and if you actually do work in California without a permit and they find out about it, they make you tear it out and start over. Okay, we're not that mean here in Utah. So,
Kevin, I just want to acknowledge your expertise and your help in that office. It's made a huge difference. I'm speaking for myself, but that has been a battle and a struggle trying to get things straightened out and trying to honestly get straight answers to questions. So it's a breath of fresh air to have you here. Hopefully, and you're doing this. Hopefully, you're working yourself out of a job. We won't need you anymore.
I hope so.
But it was, as you've said, it was pretty shattered when you got here,
It was in pretty bad shape.
and we appreciate where you've got it to.
Thank you. I hope to work myself out of a job. So that is the intent.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any additional comments? Tony, anything else? I think just a couple of things to highlight. There's been an accusation that we won't give Gillen a budget that he wants, and what that relates to 2 items. Gillen went to a lot of classes in 2023. He had a $4,000 budget for those classes, and that was for his whole staff. And by fall, he was over $10,000 in that budget. So we told him no more training for him on the county's dime.
Can I just add to that? All of that money was spent on his training, and none of his staff had went at that point.
That was one of the things the state highlighted, that they had to get the training. So he's been given budget money to send his staff to training. And the other item was he didn't like the idea that we took away from him $105,000 that we had given him in 2023 to hire a commercial appraiser to do the commercial appraisals. He did them himself. they are a mess. And we took that money away from him to pay for the commercial appraiser, and we will pay them. We're not going to leave it in his budget to take care of that. Yes, Kevin?
The training that I've witnessed in the office is very sparse. It's mostly, here's a paper, go do it. For example, how do you run sketching? How do you sketch? One employee when I got here knew how to run Apex, the sketching software. The other 3 employees were like, we just give it to that employee to do. They're all trained on Apex now. Gillen did take some time individually to teach them how to use MLS. I don't know what the training was because I wasn't involved with that. But he needs to spend and focus more time on training his staff. You know, just a couple quick stand up, go do. I've been teaching and training appraisers. We're going on 24 years. And to teach and train, you can't just have a stand-up meeting. You need a whiteboard, you need a computer, you need a laptop, you need something so that you can visually see it. How do you train somebody on what the quality of construction is on a property unless you look at it? Okay. Yes, you can read, you can see the black and white pictures, you can read through it. But what's an average quality home? What's a good quality home? I'm grateful that they can look at the statistics and the numbers and say, this employee's overgrading or this employee's undergrading homes. Great. But he still needs to train. He still needs to teach. Half the assessor's job is to teach and train his staff. And if the assessor's not teaching and training, nobody else is. And all of the employees, 2 of them have taken all of their classes. The other 2, one has 2 classes to take, and the other has 1 left to take. The next hurdle they face in licensing is to get a certified appraiser to basically sponsor them. I am working with one of the employees down there, but I've already got 3 trainings. That's all I'm allowed by law to have. So I can't take on any others. But they need to work on developing relationships with the certified appraisers in the area or in surrounding counties to be able to help with that.
And Gillen is not certified as of yet, correct?
That's correct. And you have to be certified 3 years before you're permitted to train a trainee.
It's my understanding in talking with the state that he has all the courses and all the classes necessary to take the test to become certified, so that in 3 years he could train his staff, but he's opted not to do that because he wants to go towards the commercial route.
Yeah, he wants to be a certified general. So for those not familiar with appraisal licensing, you have the trainee, which is not a license, but it gives you the ability to work under somebody who is a certified either residential or certified general appraiser. Then in the state of Utah, you have to become licensed before you become certified. That's not the case in all states, but it is in Utah. So once you become licensed, you either are on a path to become a certified residential or certified general. Certified general can do everything that a certified residential can do, plus commercial properties. A certified res does everything that's not commercial. So if it doesn't have a going concern attached to it, it's residential, and the certified res can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Stay up here. You may want to comment. So what I'm hearing is exactly what we had and was having the concerns over. For 2.5 years, he was not in the office. He was not training his staff, and they're not trained.
No, the training that has occurred, that the staff has, was done by other employees that are no longer within the office that have been trained by someone else.
Thank you. And I think the only other thing I want to highlight is the nightmare of problems that he has caused for other departments that work here at the county at all levels. He has been unwilling to work with any department, and I apologize to the clerk's office, the auditor's office, and the treasurer's office in particular, the recorder's office, and our planning department, who have wrestled nightmares with the problems he has created. And in many cases, he blames them for the problem when in reality it's his problem.
I would say it's all of our problem. As we do that, I think he makes things harder on himself and the other departments. It's a challenge. We're all in this together. If we don't work together and we don't work side by side, and we're the stick in the mud, whoever the stick in the mud is, pull yourself out of the mud, come to the party. We all need to work together because it's a challenge within itself. Great minds, we have to work together to come up with good solutions. What works for you or for Carbon County? You have to figure out what works for you. We took months deciding how to handle the residential exemption. I had several meetings with the commissioners. I talked to the treasurer. I talked to Seth in the clerk auditor's office. I talked to everybody. But doing that, I'm like, there's got to be a way that we can look at this that benefits the government of Carbon County and, in essence, the citizens of Carbon County, because that's what we're all here for.
Thank you, and we've been doing that for a long time. And as he took office, it was a total change, and he's never changed his approach to trying to blend in and help others with their jobs that are trickled over to him, from him. Thank you, Kevin.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you. We're done. Seth, do you have anything?
I don't. Thanks.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.